Good morning. Today is the second day of Tammuz and the 21st of June. And we're going to learn a very, very short mimer, which is more like a note than an essay, from the Alter Rebbe on this week's Parsha in Eretz Yisrael, Chukat. And starts with the well-known verses, Zot Hatorah Adam, and the continuation, of course, is Ki Amut Ba'od. This is the Torah of man, and this is a very important verse because from it the sages and everybody after them learned that there is a corollary between a complete correspondence between the Torah and man. That the most famous one is what we find in the Tractate of Makot, that there are 365 prohibitive mitzvot and 365 sinews in the person, and then 248 positive commandments and 248 organs in the body. And we've talked many times about the fact that when it says organs, it means really bones, because an organ, by the definition of the Torah, is something that has a bone in it. And so somebody actually conducted a study, I've talked about this before, that at about age 18 is when the person has 248 bones, because the number of bones in the body changes throughout life. There's when you're younger, you have many more bones, as it were, but actually less because they're more like cartilage still, and then they slowly fuse. And at the age of 18, especially in the hand bones apparently go through this process more than anything else. The hand and the foot. And so at the age of 18, there's this number of 248. In any case, there's this correlation and this understanding that the body of man is suited exactly to the Torah, meaning that God created man's form based on the Torah. So he says, so here he's going to learn something new entirely that we don't usually talk about the correlation between the Torah and the human body. And he says like this, just as there is in man a head and a torso and feet, so there are amongst the commandments those that are more, it's called a major and minor, or important and less important. And the usual terminology in Hebrew is a little bit different than important and not important. It's kal, which means light, and chamur, which means grave. So there are those that you could say that the entire life, spiritual life of a person depends on, in the same way that our entire physical life depends on the head more than it depends on the feet. You can lose a foot and still be a human being and live, but you can't lose your head and continue to live. So in the same way, the commandments do have, he says, those that are more grave and more life depends on them, the spiritual life depends on them, and those that don't. And still, the sages said, and the sages said that you shouldn't make this distinction. When you come to perform the commandments, you should treat them all equally. But that is not the way that you would understand from Zot Torah Adam. If you're going to compare the Torah, meaning what we have here is that the Torah, the written Torah, what Moses said, it makes the distinction. It says man is like the Torah, so therefore there must be more important organs than those that are less important for your survival and for your well-being. But then the sages came and said, and they equalized everything. They made everything equal. And yet he says, Mikol makom, even though the sages said this, that you shouldn't treat them differently, you should still be much more concerned about those that are life-dependent, meaning those that life depends on them, the spiritual life depends on them, because it's common sense. You can't treat it any other way. Because you see that even the sages use the terminology kala chamura, that some are more light and some are more grave. So they also knew that there must be mitzvot, there are commandments that are more important than others. So what was their purpose in telling us that everything should be equal in your eyes? So what they meant is, again, just to warn you and tell you, you should treat everything equally. But of course you know that there are things that are more grave than things that aren't. So who is that good by, as we'll see in a moment? That is good by someone who's healthy. The person who's healthy, so he needs to treat his entire body the same way. that everything is equally important. When the person is well, so he takes care of everything. But this situation of treating everything equally is not true for everyone. Still, you need to know which is more grave and which is more light. And this is and again, this is when the person is healthy spiritually also. If he's healthy spiritually, he can treat everything the same. Meaning, if everything that he does during the day is according to the Torah, so then he can treat everything equally, and he can give them the same weight. But when a person falls from that state, that not everything that he's doing is based on what the Torah says. So we see in the same way that in the body, what happens is when a person is not well, so he's, let's say in our day and age when there's too much food in the world, so the person is taking too much care of his of his calorie count, and he's going way overboard. He eats 3,000 calories a day, whatever it is. So in a sense, he's taking care of himself because he's eating. But you don't need to take care of the stomach that much. In fact, it's not good for everything else. So you see that when a person is not well, what gets mixed up is what is important and what is less important. And he starts spending time, like people who, I don't know, go to tanning salons or something like that. So, okay, maybe you need some vitamin D, but you don't need that much. Everything becomes warped, and the person can't tell the difference. It's like what the prophet says, Isaiah says, Jeremiah says, "Asamim choshech le'or ve'or lechoshech, mar lamatok matok lamar." That a person who's ill, things that are bitter are sweet for him. Things that are sweet are bitter. Things that are good things that are light become dark, and everything gets confused. And that's when a person is not well physically. But it's also true when a person is not well spiritually. When he's not well spiritually, he can't judge what is what. And he not only does he not treat everything equally, but he turns what is light into the most important thing, and what is grave into the lightest thing. And he doesn't take care of it. And we see this all the time, especially when somebody is beginning to come close to Torah, and he's interested in something spiritual. So he doesn't know that the most important thing in the world is to keep Shabbos. He doesn't know how important Shabbos is. He hasn't learned. He doesn't know. So he says, Shabbos is okay, but it's not that important. Or anything like that. It's very, very hard to judge when you're not, especially me, I'm not learned. So because I'm not learned, there's many things that I think are light, and they're not at all. I treat them like there's something that is very, very grave, and that I take care of. Like, what's the most important mitzvah in the world for a chassid? Go to the mikveh in the morning. If he doesn't go to the mikveh in the morning, he thinks the entire world, he's not from anymore. He's not observant. He may as well give up. If he didn't go to, or like we say, that if you don't give him negovasser, he can't get out of bed. That's it. He won't do anything all day. If he can't wash his hands in the morning, he's finished. It's a seder. Okay, I understand. It's very important, but there's a whole day in front of you. There's 24 hours. You're not going to do anything. You just stay. Again, it's a joke. Of course, people would get out of bed and do things, hopefully. But you know what? I'm not sure. There's some people who would confuse it completely.
There was a chassid. He used to talk in the mikvah. And have his yarmulke on. And he went down the road, he put it to one side. And when he came out of the mikvah, someone removed it. So he stayed in the mikvah for 4 or 5 hours.
Couldn't get out. So that can even happen in someone who's well, that something that's mixed up. And all the more so when the person is not observant at all. That's exactly that. That he grabs onto some stringency, some hiddur, something that is not even in the Torah. It's not written anywhere. It's a very important minhag, but you can't build your whole life around it. I'm not saying this, right? He was as much a chassid as you could be. He's saying this. In any case, this is to understand the problem. And on the opposite, there are things that are mamish forbidden, or things that he has to do, and he doesn't do them at all. Why? Because he hasn't learned Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't know these things. ומזה תבין הווידוי אשר הקלתי החמרתי. There's a special וידוי that רב יעקב, אתה אומר תפילת יום כיפור קטן? אומר לא. אבל אתה מכיר אשר הקלתי החמרתי. אשר הקלת החמרתי. כן. כן, there's on the eve of Rosh Chodesh, there's a special prayer that's done after Mincha. It's called Yom Kippur Katan, so small Yom Kippur. And in it, there's a vidui, a long vidui, it says there that it's from somebody called Rabbeinu Nisim. But apparently, it's either his grandfather, the famous Rabbeinu Nisim from Gerona. So it was either his grandfather or somebody still in Babylon even. It's very, very ancient. We're talking about the 900s. And he says there that one of the things he confesses about, he says, what you made stringent, I made light. And the opposite, what you made light, I made stringent. So if you would only say one side, I was more stringent about things that the Torah says are easy. Okay, so I understand why you have to confess that. Because I went over things that I wasn't supposed to. But why does he say the other side? Asher ekalta ichmarti. That whatever, the things that you, Hashem, said are light, even in the Torah, they're light, I made stringent. Why do you have to say a confession about this? That confession is because of this. Because the person's not saying about the thing itself. Okay, you made it stringent. But he's saying about the overall health, the spiritual health of the person. That he doesn't know, he can't weigh anymore what is light and what is heavier. ולכאורה מה פישור מה חטאתו בזה? וימנע יובן שתפס חומרה שלא כדת של תורה מוכח הוא שירד ממדרגות התורה. It says that when a person is a shoita, he's ill in a certain sense. He's a fool. His mind is not, he's not learning as much as he should. So then he has a state in which he's taking care of one organ of the body, he's taking care of one mitzvah to a degree that really what it indicates is that he's entirely ill. That he's completely not within Torah. He's not immersed in Torah. Torah is not guiding his life. ובוודאי קלו שמקל בה מצד אחד במה שהחמיר התורה עד כאן ודאי למקל. So this is something to think a lot about. That you have to draw a lot of common sense from how you treat your body to how you treat the Torah. You have to be healthy. And to be healthy means that you take care of all the organs. But you also understand there are organs that are more important, the organs are less important. There has to be order in how I act. Okay, so this is a very...
The correct translation of English is you missed the plot.
Yeah, you missed the whole plot. You didn't get the punchline. So it's if the Alter Rebbe would not have written this, we wouldn't be able to say this, because today the Hasidic world is entirely like you just said. If he doesn't go to the mikveh in the morning, or if somebody takes his kippah away, he's finished. He doesn't know what to do.
It could be worse. Somebody went to the Rebbe and said that he needs to become a Hasidic. So the Rebbe said, if you want to be a Hasidic bracha, you have to go to the mikveh before davening. If you're a Hasidus, before davening, you have to get tzedakah before davening. That's the three basic.
Obviously, he was talking to somebody who was already at a certain level of. At a higher level, the higher you want to go, there's more to be medayik on. How do you say medayik? To be, yeah, but more exacting in your judgments.